All right. 5, 4. Then you just go. And there's the finger guns. All right. Hi, everybody. And we're back. I'm back again. And we actually have our guest in house tonight. We tried last night, but as I said, I don't calendar so good. So apologies, but he's here tonight. So joining us this evening is very, very long time friend of the show. He was hanging out with McClatchy and I when he would come to Canada, going all the way back to Canadian Reload Radio. His relationship with Matthew and I predates Slamfire Radio, as a matter of fact. So I'm not saying he's old, but that's a long time ago. And Steve Lee is a lifelong, well, I don't know if he's a lifelong gunny, but it's gotten so complicated. I would say, and I have said, that Steve Lee is, or certainly was at one time, Australia's most popular, prominent gun advocate, known in Australian shooting communities and in communities around the world. He's gone to many different countries to hunt, and he is known for his firearms advocacy in Canada and in the United States. He's also a recording artist. He's recorded how many albums, Steve? There's definitely 2 that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, 2 gun albums, and then I did 3 or 4 albums with my family band before I got into the gun albums. Yeah.
Right. So the gun music, as I refer to it, some of the best. Big fan. And as Heffy here found out recently, we use your music on our intro for Slamfire Radio, and always have, and it has never changed. The hosts have come and gone, but Steve Lee's music has remained the one constant through. Even our logo's changed, but not our intro music. It continues to be I Like Guns. Or yes, it's still I Like Guns, right?
Yeah. I hope you're not asking me.
Time to get a gun? No, yeah. I'm looking at Adriel.
That's what it is. Yeah. Time to get a gun.
Time to get a gun. It's time to get a gun. Yeah. So, yeah. And one of my favorite Steve Lee memories is walking into the airport with Steve and Matthew and the 3 of us singing that song as we're going into an airport. It was kind of a surreal moment. So, Steve Lee, welcome back to Slamfire Radio.
Thanks, mate. Good to see you.
So, Steve, I wanted you to come on tonight to get caught up. First and foremost, the most important topic tonight is your ongoing legal battle over your firearms license. And we'll get into that. But first, I also want to touch upon the COVID situation in Australia, because over here in Canada, we're hearing all kinds of things, some of which are probably blown out of proportion, some of which, unfortunately, aren't blown out of proportion. And that is the level of restriction and control and how those restrictions are enforced in Australia. So maybe you could start there. And I know you're kind of living out in the country. You're not downtown, so you're not subjected to them every day. But is it as bad as everybody says it is?
Well, if you ask an Australian, they'd say it's not too bad at all. But then if you compare it, and of course we don't get outside the country to see what we're comparing it to, it's like much of the other sort of restrictions in Australia, they're pretty bad. Like the same as the firearms stuff, you don't realise how bad it is until you go and see another country, unless, of course, you go to China or something ridiculous that's always had them. But in relation to the COVID, all the stuff you guys have been seeing on the news is, I would say, completely true, but it's taken over a matter of months. So with the police brutality and the police enforcement and everything, that's all for real, for sure. So that's all something that's just been going on and on. But out here in the country, the police are still country police, so they a lot of them won't enforce it like you see on the news and stuff. But it is bad. And I was just talking to you guys a minute ago about the checking in thing, where you got the app where you got to check in. Well, that's just a common thing that everybody does in Australia. You talk to anyone, they go, yeah, every time you go anywhere in Australia now, you just check in and let the government know exactly where you are every time you go outside your house.
So everyone carrying a smartphone has Adriel's mind is blown. So everyone carrying a smartphone has a government app on it, and when they go into a store, they literally check in, and then that tells the government you were at that store at that date at that time.
Yeah, correct. Now, I don't know exactly how it works, because my wife, for instance, went into, this is probably 6 months ago when I first got concerned about it. She went into a shopping centre called Woolworths. I don't know if you guys have Woolworths there, but we have it in Australia. It's just a big shopping complex. She went in there, was supposed to sign in, forgot to sign in, did a shopping. On the way home, she got a text message from that shopping centre saying, if you don't check in again, you can't come to this store. You must check in every time you come. But she hadn't used her card to check in. So she's like, number one, where did I get my phone number from? And number two, how did they know I was there? So she uses this card there. It's a rewards point card for Woolworths. So she must have not checked in, but went through the machine and ticked her card on. So they somehow, within a matter of minutes, they knew that she hadn't checked in. And I don't know if it's so. That got me concerned because is it the government app that the shopping centre has complete access to as well? I don't know. So that was frustrating.
I mean, the two have got to be the two have got to be communicating somehow.
Well, yeah, maybe it's the record. I'm not sure how it works, but that was a problem for me that Woolworths was, and they somehow had my wife's mobile, so I guess they got it off her card. She's like, so it took us a while to figure it out. But I mean, a lot of people do sign in, so you can sign in by paper if you don't have the app on your phone. But the majority of people have app on their phone. I don't use the app, but it's just something that happens.
Do you have an idea of what the numbers are like in Australia? Like, are hospitalizations at the point where the healthcare system is on the brink of collapse? Are people dying? Are people hospitalized? Or is it just, are they using case numbers to justify?
It's all about case numbers. I'm still, after all this time, have not bumped into anyone who's caught COVID. I don't know anyone who's caught COVID at all. So out here in the country, and I bump into a lot of people. So it's not. It's probably the same as where you guys are. There's this big thing about how many people are catching it and everything.
No, in Alberta here, like the healthcare system isn't collapsed, but we're basically on emergency capacity right now. Like we add beds wherever they can go. All non-essential surgeries have been canceled. And we're just trying to make it through right now. So that's how it is in Alberta. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same here. That all the non-essential surgeries and everything like that is happening. So, and most in the cities, I guess there must be a lot of people who are stuck in the hospitals because it's like my sister-in-law now just found out that she had breast cancer, but they couldn't give her a test over the last 2 years. So, and then she says, I couldn't get the test. And then I go and get a test and I didn't die of COVID, but I'm going to die of this. Like how does that work?
Yeah.
So, but we hear all these stories all the time. They're constantly hearing horror stories. Like my daughter lost her job the other day because she couldn't, if she's in childcare. So she lost her job because she won't get the vaccine. So she wouldn't quit because it's unlawful for them to ask her for them to sack her, but she can resign. She said, well, I'm not resigning. And so her friend who was also working with her got the vaccine, and you've heard all these stories. And then that following day, she had a miscarriage, the girl who got the vaccine, but it wasn't to do with the vaccine, of course. It was to do with whatever else. But I mean, I hear these stories regularly, but
so that was my next question about vaccine mandates. For example, like my employer has set it up now where you're right, I can't be sacked for not getting the vaccine. So what my employer will do is send me home without pay indefinitely. So am I supposed to starve to death? Like, it's get the vaccine or don't get paid. That's what they're doing to us. So
that court case that you're watching, in Australia is about that. It's about whether they have the mandate to be able to sack people for not getting the vaccine.
Well, see here, they're not sacking us. They're saying you're not fired. You're just not getting paid. And the New Brunswick Human Rights Commission won't hear these cases. And unions are saying, yep, they can legally do it. So they've had the ability to enact this kind of enforcement on the citizens for quite some time, and they're only doing it now. They didn't create these laws overnight. So if the law firm representing the union looks into it and says, oh yeah, they can legally send you home without pay if you don't put something in your body you don't want, well, that system has been in place for some time then.
So you guys do have lockdowns there where they lock a city or something down regularly?
Yes. So we've gone from provincial-wide lockdowns to just lockdowning health zones that happen to have more cases than other places. The terminology is changing all the time. Right now it's called a circuit breaker. But right now, Thanksgiving weekend in New Brunswick, I cannot have my family into my home for Thanksgiving dinner. But restaurants are open. and we can all go congregate in a restaurant with a bunch of other families we don't know. That's the kind of logic we're working under.
Well, at the moment in New South Wales, we're up to 70% double vax as of today. So as of today, I go into lockdown because I'm not double vaxxed and I'm not single vaxxed, but anyway. But when it gets to 80%, they're going to open it up to everyone who's double vaxxed, and then I'm not allowed to go out until the 1st of December. And then on the 1st of December, the whole of Australia will go back to normal as if nothing's happened.
Wow. So anyone who has not disclosed their vaccination status remains in lockdown, and all the other people who have disclosed their vaccination status are free to move.
Correct. And you got to walk around with the app. So on your app, the app that you go in and out of places with, that has it on there whether you've been double vaxxed or not.
So it's your vaccine passport. So you got the app to track your movement and to prove that you've received 2 doses.
Correct. Yeah, but they're not calling it the passport because it's funny. We had this Conservative government in power here bringing all these laws in. So I suppose Conservative. Yeah, she had a case coming up. It's called ICAC. It's an independent corruption committee that were going after her 18 months ago. So they let it go until this week. And then 2 weeks ago. So now they're saying they are going to charge her or bring charges against her. So then then she resigns from her position, but she's done all the COVID lockdowns. She's done all the bad stuff. She's made everyone do all this stuff. But now it's our Liberal Party, but it's the Liberals in Australia are called Conservative. Don't even get me started on the name. So they're called the Liberals, but they're Conservative. So she's resigned. So they're putting someone else in who's opposed to COVID the passports, and he wants to open up everything. So it's like they did whatever they wanted for the last 18 months. Now they're going to try and get all their voters back by putting another guy in, but they did it all anyway. So they're up to 80%. As soon as they get to 80%, they get rid of her who did it and they put someone else in. So it's all the political games they play in Australia is just horrendous. It just never ends.
And that's a great segue into talking about your ongoing legal battle with the registry because of the things that they have pulled and done. So let's talk about guns again. Now, Steve, you had quite the large following on YouTube for many years. You had all kinds of awesome shooting videos on YouTube. You traveled the world to hunt. You held just about every firearms license possible that someone could hold in Australia, because unlike Canada, where Canada has 2 licenses, call it the restricted and the non-restricted, there's a different class of license and what you can own and what you can use it for, and so there was quite a system, and including a theatrical armors license.
Yeah.
And it was hard to own semi-autos, but at one time you played nice, you jumped through all the hoops, you had just about every license that I know of that you could have.
Correct, yeah.
And you were an advocate, very outspoken, and with a lot of exposure. They knew who you were. So then one day something happens and all your licenses are taken away, and you've been fighting ever since. So bring us back as far back as you want, and let's work through to how
I'll try not to bore you too much with the details, but yeah, you're right. So when I did the videos in 2010, I think I did the Ole Guns video, the original one, and it sort of took off. I didn't know much about YouTube at that time, and I was going over to the States for something near Christmas, and when I left, I had 10,000 views. When I landed, I had like 30,000 views, and the next day, then I had like 250,000 views. I didn't even know what a viral video was. I didn't even understand anything about it. The only reason I put it on YouTube.
And if I could jump in, this I Like Guns video you're referring to was in fact the music video for the title track of the album.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, the I Like Guns. Yeah, and I just put it on YouTube because the country music station in Australia wouldn't play it. I sent it to them. They said, yeah, great video, but there's no way we're putting that on our television show. No way at all. So, and with the video, what I did is I went to Cambodia. I do a bit of shooting here in Australia, and then when you watch the video, then I end up in Cambodia with the Cambodian army, and it ends with me blowing up a car with an RPG, which is just fantastic video. I mean, I'm still proud of it to this day. Great video, great concept, and
imagine. I got to jump in, Steve. Imagine a gun range in a country that will, for a price, allow you to shoot a cow with an RPG. This is
I
the
have
reality.
I've heard the stories. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Steve lived it. And
Yeah,
then
well,
he-
I was always dubious about shooting a cow because I knew it wouldn't look good on video, and I'm not real cool about. I mean, it's quite an expensive way to get yourself a barbecue. So one day when we were over there, I was going past a place that made all these idols and everything, big idols and all that sort of stuff. But they had made a cow out of concrete for whatever reason. And I went past and said, "What's with that?" They go, "No one will buy it." I said, "I'll give you $200 for it." They said, "You're right." So we get it trucked up to the range and blow this concrete cow up. So I've got a video called RPG versus Cow. And it's just, I mean, it ended up on television shows and everything because no one really wants to show you blowing up a cow. And all the time I was there, I never saw them actually blow up a cow. It was more of an angle. So I always defend them and said probably not. But I'm going to say it's been done for sure. But yeah, I haven't blown a real cow.
To be fair, you did find a chicken's foot on the range floor.
Yeah.
Right? So
yes. Yeah, no, they play chicken butt regularly.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So Cambodia.
So anyway, so I do this video, does quite well. Then because I already had an album called I Like Guns, so it was just 12 gun songs. I always had a concept in my head and just put the video out there. So for about 3 or 4 years, it went quite well. The YouTube videos picked up. But as the guy that I am, I just kept pushing the boundaries. Every time I do a video, I do something a little bit more risque, I would say. And thinking that the firearms registry didn't particularly care because they get a good few laughs out of it. You know, I wouldn't really break laws, but I'd stretch them to their fullest limit constantly, right? And so it was a little self-inflicted that they came after me. I can't just say that they were just mean coming after me. And a lot of people think that the firearms registry wants out to get everybody. They are, but they think they're doing it for good purposes. They think they're helping the community. So this delusion that gun owners have that all the registries are after them just because they're mean people. No, they're just dumb, mate. They just have no concept that you can have guns and still be not dangerous. That in their minds, these zealots just stand there and go, you know, this is our calling to life to rid the community of guns. And it's no other reason than they think they're doing what is the right thing. Because
not poverty, not gangs.
They're just
guns
so
from
it
law
took me a while
abiding
to It took me a while to understand that I wasn't fighting against someone who was just. Oh, they are mean, so I can't say that they're not mean. They're mean, and they lie and they do whatever they can to get what they want. But I do think they're zealots in the fact that they think they're doing what is best for the community. But they're
by
just
any means
naive.
necessary, practically.
They're just dumb, mate. And the one thing that I have found since I've been in this, which I'll get back to the court case in a sec, but one thing because I can see you guys are going through the same issues we were 20 years ago with all the stuff that's happening to you. I can see where this is headed. And it's the devil is in the details on the laws they bring in. You got to understand how amazing the details. They'll bring it in, they won't touch it for 10 years, and then they'll start enforcing it when you don't see it coming.
Case in point, Steve, they actually made 12-gauge shotguns illegal, and when we called them on it, they went, no, that's not what we meant. Well, what do you mean? That's not what you meant? It's the way you wrote it. Yeah, so like you said, 10 years from now, they'll come back.
Yeah, and then if they want to go after a guy that brings a video and puts it on YouTube, they 100% will use that law against him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many angles in this. One of the things that stands out to me, but there was about 30 of these, one particular one, as a dealer, it says in the law that I must know the law and comply with it, right? So that's what it says. As a firearms dealer, you get put into a higher perspective on your knowledge of guns. So when you send something to the registry, they don't got to know what it is. If you say it's a semi-auto and it's not, and you're a dealer, then you're in trouble because they'll just write it down as a semi-auto. So what happened was when I got my one of the things they brought up in court was that my theatrical armorers safety safes and the room and everything I had wasn't up to scratch. And so when I presented it to them, I said, well, hang on. The problem is you guys passed this 18 months ago, and it's you guys who passed it. And the magistrate, not the opposition, said, but Mr. Lee, the law states that you must know the law and comply with it. So why didn't you tell the inspecting sergeant that it wasn't up to scratch? It's not up to him to know.
So let me see if I understand this correctly. You were subjected to an inspection.
Yep.
The inspector said that everything was compliant and up to code and legal.
Yep.
And then in court, they said, well, in fact, it wasn't. And it was on you to tell the person inspecting you what the law actually is. Am I
correct? Because
correct?
when the laws came out in '96 or whenever they changed it, they wrote into the law that the firearms, a firearms dealer must know the law and comply with it. And so I should have told the guy that he got it wrong.
That's like me, but that's like me getting pulled over by a peace officer and explaining to him which part of the Motor Vehicle Act I'm in violation of.
Yeah,
in case he doesn't know.
Well, I had to do that yesterday, but that's another story.
That's another story, yeah. Okay, so let's go back to you were subjected to an inspection.
So I got an inspection for my dealer's license. Now, this
what
guy
year was this?
This is in 2012.
2012. So at this point, so the dealer's license and the theatrical armor's license, I think, came about after we had met.
Yeah, about 2011, because I was having a problem. I was doing videos and I wanted to get more guns. And with the dealer's license, I found that you could tick all the boxes and get everything up to RPGs if you could find one in Australia, right? So you could have machine guns and all that sort of thing, which is pretty cool. But then I mentioned to them one day, I realized how petty they were getting. And I thought to myself, they're going to try and get me one day. Because I went for a theatrical armors license. And the lady goes, why do you need a theatrical armors license? Because I'm doing videos on YouTube. She goes, well, just use your A and B license, your other licenses. Don't worry about it. And I said, yeah, but one day you'll come after me and say, your legal purpose is for hunting and target shooting, and this isn't hunting and target shooting. They go, oh, no, we wouldn't do that.
Yes, we would.
So I got the license with that argument. And then when it came to the crunch, they went back before I got the theatrical armors license and brought all those videos up and said I wasn't doing them under that. They did exactly what I said they were going to do. So they brought all these videos up and they said he wasn't legally able to do that because that's not hunting and that's not target shooting. And so for a long time, even in Australia, you couldn't even sight your gun in, technically, under the law, on your own land. Because if you just sit there shooting, you've got to do it on an authorized range. You can't shoot. You can only hunt on your property. You can't sit there and just shoot tin cans. It's completely illegal in Australia. So what they did with me was because I was doing videos on a range, they said, that's you put up a unauthorized range. I said, it's not a range. It's a test firing facility because under my dealer's license, I'm allowed to test any of the guns under that license. So even if I'm not registered to me, I can test fire them. They said, yeah, but that's not testing. And I go, well, what is? They go, well, the law doesn't state what it is, but it's not that.
This is why we can never win.
And it just sent me insane. So a lot of these things the problem is a lot of these things they won't charge you for in Australia. There's a thing called NCAT, which it's a tribunal. So what happens in a tribunal is the registry will just come up. So the Commissioner of Police has the authority in Australia to stop anyone's license for any reason he deems fit. So if it's in the public interest in his view, he can just take your license. Now, the funny thing I found with the COVID issue is that the reason the Commissioner of Police, who now basically has control of New South Wales, so the Commissioner of Police, basically all the premiers and all the politicians answer to the Commissioner of Police. He has the most power here in New South Wales because it's still under a state of emergency. So in South Australia, basically they've written it into the law that the Commissioner of Police under a state of emergency has control over the whole state and that he's got that control. So this happens with the firearms laws as well. So basically, if the Commissioner of Police doesn't want you to have a firearms license, you can fight it, but then you have to go to this thing called NCAT. But in NCAT, the problem being is that the only thing you can do in NCAT is they can just prove, but it doesn't have to be law. So they can just bring things against you. And if they can just convince the judge, they don't have to have it like in court where it's got to be proven that you actually did it. They can just suggest that you did it. And if they can convince the judge that you did it, even if they don't have enough facts, that's enough for him. So the same angle of guilty until proven innocent doesn't really, it's different when you go to NCAT. So with that in mind, all they do is they don't charge you for these things, but they just try and convince the judge. So in the end, they convince the judge that I did this wrong by this video, did this wrong by this video. So although I haven't been charged, I actually did those things anyway, and I'm not fit to have a gun license.
So those things came up after you went to court because your license was taken away as a result of this inspection. So what prompted that inspection that happened, I think you said 2012, 2013?
Being the guy that I am, I talked to the main guy at the registry a couple of times about some guns that I wanted It was complicated. So same thing you guys are going through with the semi-autos. They'll try and say one's bad and one's good. Like you can't, a Mini 14's okay, but an AR-15's not because it looks like a military weapon. And then those sort of things were going on. And I said, look, I really want an M14 to shoot out of a chopper, shooting pigs out of a chopper. And they go, you know, I can't have an M14 because there's a statement in the law that says if it was designed or used for military purposes, you can't have it on a D-class license. And I'm like, yeah, but that's every gun. Like every gun was like, they go, no, the Mini 14's not. I researched it, and the Mini 14 was actually used by the Indian Army. So I'm like, I don't even want to go there, right? As soon as you point that out, then you got nothing.
Yeah.
And but I just pointed it out, and I'm sure they'll hear that, and now Mini 14s are gone. But that's another story. Anyway, so with all that in mind, they came after me for that on the phone. So I talked to the main guy at the registry, and me and him had a very heated argument on the phone, and and as soon as I got off the phone, this is about in 2011, 2012, I turned to my wife and said, that guy's going to come after me for sure. He's got it in for me 100%. He's the guy that rocked up at my house on the day with with about 20 cops from they bought cars and everything. There was 20 police here, all armed and everything. And they came around to do an inspection, but it was the major crime squad. So they brought the guys who go after the bikers and stuff in Australia. They brought the major crime squad. Wow. And so then they went through all my guns. And so when they're going through them all, they brought out my Tech 9s and my Scorpions and all this sort of stuff. And somehow there's a couple of Scorpions I had a couple of bullets jammed in the chamber because they jammed it and one of the bullets just stayed in there sideways. So then they were going to charge me with storing ammunition with your firearms in your safe. And they just come up with a whole lot of charges that were technically right but circumstantial. And so he just went through everything. And on that day, he was able to take my guns and say, we've got an investigation going on here. He was so happy when he found that bullet in there because he knew that was the wedge that he was going to use. And then they just went back and it took months and months and months and came up with all these other charges, went through all my videos, just tried to find a whole heap of stuff. When it ends up in court,
on that day, they seized all of your firearms?
Everything.
And you
and
were...
my wife's and my son's. And my son was in Cambodia at the time.
So, do you want to share that number?
Oh, no, because I was a dealer, I probably had a couple hundred guns, a couple hundred firearms. Yeah, wasn't huge.
No,
but it was last week they took 300 guns off an 85-year-old because they said he no longer has a need for firearms because he's too old. This only happened just last week. But this is going on now. They'll take your firearms license for anything now. Anything. Bad driving record, you're gone.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. So anyway, then I fight this in NCAT, and I got a pretty good sitting member in NCAT, a guy called Walker. And we go through the whole process, but they just drag it out. So this takes years to go through NCAT. Every time we get through it, they just drag out every day. And every day you got to get a new date. It's another 5 months. So it takes years. So when I finally get to the end, the magistrate. So first of all, I went to court for all the charges. Went to court. In the end, all they could get me for was shooting on an unauthorized range. So they said that the guns I was using, I was shooting on an unauthorized range. I was shooting an M14 on an unauthorized range. I wasn't authorized for it, and a pistol. And there was that charge and having an unauthorized range. That was it. So when I talked to them, so all the charges went away except for those three. So then my lawyer advised me, said, if you plead guilty, it's not actually a major offense. It's such a minor offense. It's like a fine at best because it's like an oversight. So I didn't really want to plead guilty. I plead guilty and I get a section 10(1)(b), which means I get a bond for 18 months, but it doesn't proceed to conviction. So I'm not convicted. But I didn't want to have a bond for 18 months. So I appealed and said, stuff that. You got to do something better than that. And the lawyer goes, you freaking won, mate. I said, yeah, not really. So I spent another $4,000, go back to court, fight it, and then I get a section 10(1)(a), which means there's not proof of it, proceed to conviction, and no bond. So I fight them right to the end, and I get no conviction at all. So then the registry says, even though you got no conviction, you still did all those things, not giving your license back. And I'm like, what the frig? So then I had to go to this thing called NCAT. So then I go to NCAT, goes on for years. When it comes to the crunch at the end of NCAT, which is a tribunal, the sitting member says, look, what I want you to do is I want you to give back Mr. Lee his A, B, C, D, and H. So my semi-autos, my pistols, all my firearms, and his paintball license, because they'd shut my paintball field down for this whole time. So I was losing. I had no way of making a quit either. It was just quite difficult. And so, and they wouldn't let me have paintball guns because paintball guns are a prohibited weapon in Australia. Well, they were, but now they're not, but let's forget it. Anyway, so then in the end, so what happens was the magistrate says, you got to give him back his A, B, C, D, and H and his paintball license. So I'm like, I really wanted my theatrical armours and my dealers. And he goes, I don't think Mr. Lee's up to scratch at the moment to comply with all the different regulations that the dealer's license, the actual armourer's license entitles him to do. So just give him all them back. So they appeal. And when it gets to the appeal, is this the time they win? They win the appeal, but they don't have a point of law. So the only way you can appeal in court is if you've got a point of law. The guy who makes the judgment has to be doing it. They have to bring up a point of law. So when we go for the appeal, the guy goes, what's your point of law? To the registry. And they go, oh, well, we think that he shouldn't have it. And they go, you can't just say you can't have it. What's your point of law? Where did the walker make a mistake? So this goes on and on and on. And then the lefty damn new sitting member goes, well, look, go away and see if you can find a point of law and come back. And I'm like, what the frig? How many chances are you going to give these people?
You're not ready. You're not ready. Case dismissed.
Then they come back like weeks or months later, stand before her, and she goes, look, you haven't got a point of law, but I've read all the stuff, and you're right, you shouldn't have a license. I'm like, what? You can only appeal on a point of law. You don't have a point of law, and she takes my licenses back. I'm like, that can't be right. So anyway, so then I appeal their appeal to the Supreme Court, the highest court in New South Wales. And this cost me like another $120,000 to fight it all the way because I've got to get a QC and a barrister and a lawyer. And I'm just like, they're just like bleeding me dry, right, these people. So I get all the way to the Supreme Court. When I get there, for whatever reason, the sprinklers, they have a storm, the sprinklers go off in the Supreme Court room. I just can't get a break, right? So the day that I've booked is gone because all the sprinklers in the whole place is wet. But then we lock it in for the following day, but only a real short term. So we walk in and the magistrate says, so we don't get a chance to present our case. He goes, look, just leave all your paperwork there and I'll read through it. I'm like, what the frig? I paid 120 grand for you to read a book. Like, what the frig? No, this isn't going to work. Anyway, so he goes away, takes 8 months. I don't hear anything. I ring up and complain and say, can you tell the Supreme Court judge to pull his finger out, which probably doesn't help, right? Mm-mm. So then he, within 2 weeks, rings back and goes, yeah, I'm not going to hear your case because you don't have a point of law. I'm like, my point of law is they didn't have a point of law, but I don't have a point of law. I'm just like, if I had hair, I'd tear it out. I'm like, what? Give me a break, right? But because I haven't got any charges, I can then reapply for my license and start the whole process again. So I do. I thought, stuff it. So then I reapply for my license, get back into NCAT, go all the way through NCAT, do it all again, get back to NCAT, still don't get it. So then I have to wait again, put my license in, go to NCAT. Finally, they said, no, it hasn't been enough time in that one. Then this last NCAT one, they said, Mr. Lee, and the registry brings up all the old things that have already been disproven. So it's not even legal what they're doing. They're bringing up all the old stuff like they're going to retry the cases, and it's already been disproven. And I'm like, you can't just keep bringing stuff up. And the magistrate said, you can't do that. So the magistrate in the end says to him, okay, I agree with the registry. Mr. Lee, I disagree with the registry. Everything the registry's brought up is either too old, so I disregard everything they've said. Although Mr. Lee does have a bad driving record, so I'm not going to give him his gun license because if he can't abide by gun laws, how can he? If he can't abide by driving rules, how can he abide by gun laws? So no, he's not going to have a license. So then he said, but some time passes, Mr. Lee, and you don't get any more incidents, you can apply for your license again. You can apply for it any time, but you can get your license. So then I wait up until 4 months ago. I've got all my points back, so I haven't had a fine in 3 years. Put my application in, and I'm going to wait, but they'll drag it out because the applications here can take up to 18 months, so they'll drag it out. But after I told you that story yesterday, Trev, I went down the street, driving down, got pulled over for a breath test, and there was on my number plate, there was a little, my trailer plug was poking up a little bit, covering one of the letters. So he's going to fine me for obstructing a number plate, which I'll lose 3 points. So can I get
some kind of coincidence? It seems really
that
convenient.
one, no, 100%. No, I'd love to put a conspiracy theory on that thing. It was my own stupid fault. I went past him. It was on the other side of the road. I did a U-turn to go back to get something for a cow that's dying out in my paddock, but forget that. Did a U-turn, went around, went into the breath test myself. He didn't even know I was coming. And then I just pulled in there. He thought I looked suspicious. I got a black F-250. It does big wheels. It's just
serves you right for driving a Ford. You kind of have
mate. It's not a bad Ford. It cost me a fortune, but I do love it.
How much do you love it now?
Yeah, I still love the car. Not real keen on the copper as usual, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I even pleaded with him. I even considered crying. I did.
I would
I
have.
pleaded with the guy. I'm like, mate, can you not do this? And I explained. I said, can you turn your mic off? Because I got a mic and a camera on all the cops here.
Yeah.
And I said, can you turn your mic off? He goes, no. And I said, oh, man, I just need to give me a break. And I said, I've been fighting them. I told him my story. And I said, surely there's something I can do. And he goes, it seems to me like you're trying to bribe me.
Oh, geez, you got a
Man,
winner
I'm not
there.
trying to bribe you. Isn't it discretionary that you fine me? He goes, yeah. And I said, well, I'm asking for discretion not to fine me. I'm not asking for a freaking bribe. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, you didn't offer him anything. Wait, did you say all this while you're on your knees?
Pretty well.
But you were praying. I understand.
Oh, mate, always praying. Always
Yeah.
praying. Sometimes
It
I
seems
wonder
to be
if the Lord
working
hears me.
real
I
well.
try hard, though. Yeah.
Oh, man.
But I have a plan. I have
Okay.
a plan.
All right.
I'm not going to say it here, but I have a plan. We'll see.
Okay. Well, listen, your tenacity and your stamina and your will to persevere is unmatched. Most people would have just thrown in the towel.
I'll tell you one thing that makes it all worse, right? So in Australia, you'll love this. If you don't have a gun license, you cannot fire a firearm at all. You can't go out in the paddock and shoot with a mate who has a firearm. You can't do it. If I gave my gun to my wife who didn't have a license and she fired it, or you put it on YouTube, which happens regularly, people will put a thing on Facebook with their kids shooting one of their guns, and they'll lose their gun license straight up. And there is people on Facebook and everything looking. The registry has people employed to do this. So in Australia, being the God-fearing man that I am, when this first happened, I made this ridiculous promise that I so regret to myself and to God. I said, look, Lord, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to fire a gun in Australia until I get my gun license back, because I'm not going to make these stupid registry make me break the law. They go shake themselves sideways. I'm not doing it. So I make this promise to myself and to the Lord, and now I'm tied to it. And I'm so regretful because, not that I'd say this, because it would be easier to break the law.
Period? You mean period?
I haven't fired a gun in Australia for 8 years.
In Australia, but if you come to Canada tomorrow,
I'm fine. No. I still go to Cambodia. So
okay.
So
I thought you
for
made
instance,
this promise to the Lord that you weren't going to fire a gun. Period.
Oh no! I'm not that silly. I'm silly, but I'm not that silly.
Okay, good. All right.
I have some regrets in my life, but no, not that many.
Okay.
So anyway, with the Cambodia thing, because I had so many fans on YouTube with the Cambodia video, me and my son decided to put a video on YouTube and say, look, we're going to do a tour to Cambodia if you want to come and see how we made the I Like Guns video. I charged people $47.50 to come with me to Cambodia. One time we had 20 people. A couple of Canadians came on that trip as well. So we do a 5-day motorbike trip through the jungles of Cambodia, and then we go to the Cambodian army, shoot machine guns, blow cars up. Not cows, but yeah, blow cars up. We usually go and buy. We'll go around the streets and find a car to buy, drive it to the range. It's a great trip, a really good trip. I haven't done one for a couple of years. But I'll still go over there, and I get my firearm fixed quite regularly in Cambodia. And in Canada, man, I'd nearly moved to Canada. Before I saw your laws happening, I'm like, I've got to move. I've got a mate who moved there. But you guys, I don't want to go through all this pain again. I look at you guys and go, man, I don't want to go back to 96 and be where you guys are at.
Yeah, give it a little bit of time, and it's going to be there.
And the key, I think the key to this is we all try and vote people in, but you're wasting your time. I'm sorry to tell you, it doesn't matter who you vote in. If you really want to win this battle, you have to change public opinion on firearms. You're wasting your time because the politicians will change the law in your favor if they think they're going to get elected for it.
That's right. And we have a group in Canada called the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights, the CCFR.
I see this stuff all the time. Yeah, I see. Yeah.
And they have constantly referred to themselves as a PR organization.
Yeah.
And that's the number one.
That's where you guys need to be supporting. You need to be supporting because you need to change the opinion of the public. You got to understand you're up against the left agenda, the UN agenda of pushing society into the understanding that firearms are dangerous, firearms are bad. You're fighting against that constantly. So in Australia, the battle's pretty well lost here because the majority of people live on the coast and in the cities. They don't need firearms. They don't have. I mean, people were lining up here to get the jab. The government says get the jab.
Yeah. I was just going to say that too, Steve. I agree with you 100%. You got to change public perception, but the world has gone so woke that we're creating a whole new class of citizen that's not vaccinated. That's just, like you
Well,
can't.
we have another issue in Canada, in that a lot of Canadian culture, a lot of people define Canadian culture as not American. We're like America, but we're not America. So they find these points of contention where, oh yeah, we're like America, but we got free healthcare, and we've got gun laws and all these other things. So a lot of people tie that up into Canadian left nationalism. Is really the concept there of, yeah, we're Canada and we're not America, and America is all about guns, so therefore we are the opposite of that. And
Yes.
a lot of people push that way because they feel that that's the culture of this country, not America.
But don't worry too much, because before long, American will be saying, "Yeah, we're Canadians," because that's the way they're. You watch them.
Maybe, yeah.
Oh man, I love America to death, but the infiltration of the fact that Biden somehow got voted back in, whether you believe in the Trump saying that was not enough, even though the fact is 50-50 on the votes between left and right.
Yeah, regardless, he's in. That's the
It
problem.
should be. The land of the free should be like 70% Republicans all the time, if the Republicans were actually like not so left. The problem we have in Australia is we don't have a right and a left governments anymore. We only have a centre, which isn't centre, and a left. But the centre is so left. Where's centre these days? It used to be right's here and left is here. And now, then they say centre is here, but centre's way over in the friggin' left now. You're like, that's not centre.
Yeah, what's center now is 20 years ago left.
Correct. Yeah. And like even all the new guys coming up, I don't even go on Facebook with gun people on that, because they just argue about, the laws aren't so bad, and then I'm going, do you guys not see where we were and where we are? Like,
That's this.
they're
born into this new level
that's right.
of restriction.
They're 30 years old, and they weren't there when we were out shooting pigs with semi-autos and having fantastic times with guns and not killing anybody.
Motorbiking with an SKS, shooting pigs.
Fantastic, man.
That's another good one. So, Steve, what can you share with us about what's next for you?
On the gun front,
sure.
I've put in my application, so these guys won't give me a gun license anyway. So I'll be back in court anyway. But I have a few plans on the angle. The fact of the matter is, someone needs to fight someone in the court, and a lot of these things at the registry have got away with, like if you've got a bad driving record, you can't have a gun license. What happens is they win that at NCAT. Now, NCAT's the lowest court. So all you need to do is take it to a higher court than NCAT, and whatever precedent is set in NCAT is then overridden by the next highest court. That's why people end up in the highest court in the country, because it overrides every other court. So NCAT's the lowest of the courts. So most of the stuff that the registry has passed is in the lowest court system. And then people got no fight in them. These guys are very good at wearing you down. They just wear you down till you got no money left, you got no go left. It's just not worth the hassle. And I'm there. Some days I'm there. Then other days I wake up in the morning, I've got a bit of a spring in my step, and I'm like, yeah, I'll take him on again today. And then some guy will pull me over and charge me for having my license plate with a little thing on it, and I'm like, come on, man, give me a break.
Yeah, and stuff like that will take the wind out of your
crying
sails.
less on the ground, pleading with the guy. Please, Mr. Police Officer.
Well, hopefully this little visit from Canada will help put some spring back in your step, because you're not forgotten. We know you're out there. We know you're still fighting. And
thanks, mate.
Is there anything I didn't bring up or ask that you want to cover before we
Not
shut her
really.
down?
The only thing I would say for you guys is I've been watching what's going on in Canada, and you guys, I don't want to bring you down or anything, but man, you're in a world of trouble, mate. You got to. I don't know the answer, because here I am without a gun license. So how can I give you any advice? But the thing is, these guys, if you can when the laws are coming out now, you've got to get politicians who are going to go through them with a fine tooth comb, because all those little details is what ends up getting you in the end. It's those little things that they say, oh, that's not exactly what it means. So you need some really good lawyers who are very, very pro-gun pushing it. And I've seen you guys had a lot of wins, so it's not impossible to win. I had a meeting with the guy, Christian bloke as well, good guy, the politician that got your registry disbanded. The politician that got your registry disbanded years ago, when you guys had all the guns were registered, and then he fought it, got it chucked out.
Yeah,
so you guys didn't have a registry.
Well, it was April 6, 2012. There was a lot of key players in that one, people that testified at the.
Well, there was one main guy pushing it. Anyway, he came to Australia. He came to our church, but he was talking about what he did with the gun laws, and he wasn't even a gun guy. And him and his wife came. They were really encouraging. But he's, I can't even think of his name. Probably in my phone. But anyway, Canadian politician, older bloke. But anyway, I had a bit to do with him, and he talked to me. So I know there is people in there fighting for you guys, but man, I just don't know. When I was reading it yesterday, what that Mong you've got in as a prime minister, or whatever he is now. Oh, what an idiot!
Yeah.
But
trust fund baby.
So I don't know, but we're in the same boat. So we're fighting against the Western world. It's just going less and less Western, we're just becoming like the rest of the world. I mean, as a Christian, I think it's more of a biblical thing. I think the left is all about, the right was always about biblical and godly principles. And I think what's happened in society is people have fallen further and further away from God, but that's from a religious standing. I think half the problem is that people need God, but this isn't a Christian podcast. But that's where I'm at. So that's where I just see it as a real attack on morals and standing and all that sort of thing. So, and I think this is just the repercussions of that.
Yeah.
How do you fix it? All you guys go get saved. That'll start.
Yeah. Hey man, you know what? If I thought it would get my guns back, I might consider it. I was going to join a church just to stay away from the COVID vaccine, but they won't even let you have a religious exemption anymore.
No.
So, nope.
Yeah. No religious exemption. Yeah.
No.
Our church is pretty cool. The one we got here, they're going to shut the society down at 70%. We're going to be allowed to go to church until 80% came unvaccinated. And so our church just said, well, we're going to shut the doors for everyone until the 80% comes up, so everyone can just stay home, which I thought was a nice time.
Yeah. I've seen some of that solidarity. Like there's one office in town where the people who don't disclose their vaccination status have to wear a mask, and those who do don't have to wear a mask. And the entire group said, you know what, we're not going to make some of our colleagues stand out and look silly, so we're all going to wear a mask in solidarity.
Oh, well, there you go. Because in Australia, everyone has to wear a mask all the time.
Well, currently we do, but this was when a couple of weeks ago, before everything had gone to pot again. So
yeah.
Well,
but anyway,
it depends on province too, right?
Exactly.
Some provinces you do, some you don't. Yeah.
So, well, Steve, I
didn't bore you guys too much, but that's my sad story.
Well, let's not wait this many years for an update, and let's hope that the next update is a win for you for a change.
Or at least me being in Canada, going hunting again.
Well, that'd be awesome too. So
I'm running out of species to hunt in Canada, unfortunately.
What's left?
I still haven't got a elk. You got elk?
Oh yeah, we got elk.
Oh yeah.
A caribou and elk the same thing?
Nope.
No.
I haven't got a caribou either. I haven't got a sheep or a goat.
Oh wow, no, you've still got a lot of the big.
Well, I've got a moose coming. I've got like 4 black bears. I've got a grizzly coming. A wolf. Mm-hmm. I've already done all those.
Now, when you say coming, you mean because you get all your stuff taxidermied and then shipped home? Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to go to BC for your sheep, and then northern.
Yeah, I don't think I'll shoot a sheep. They're too expensive, and it's a sheep, mate. I got like
they're super expensive to go for
super
sheep hunt.
I know, but if you're after
if
you're after the North American big game list.
No, not really. I just like hunting. Right. I'm not of tied up on the biggest one or anything.
Elk and caribou are certainly far, far more accessible and affordable. There's elk in Alberta. Yeah. There's
and I always wing things really. I'm lucky to wing things. So that grizzly, I went for a bid for a goat hunt, which I didn't particularly want, but I got it for like $7,000 US for this goat hunt. It was worth $18,000 for up in BC. And the guy that was who put it up for auction came over and he tried to buy it off me for 10 because he reckons it cost me 12 to send you up there. So how about I just buy it off you for 10? And I'm like, I'm not in, man. So then when I rang him, because I knew him, because a mate of mine was working for him, so I rang him and said, look, can I add a moose to that? And he's like, what, for a $7,000 hunt? See, I'll just add a moose. He goes, all right, I'll put a moose tag in. It's like 100. It wasn't expensive for the tag. Yes, but if you get a moose, you have to pay another $5,000. So yeah, right, I'll do it. So then the week before I leave, they say that they're going to ban grizzly bears. And so I ring him and go, can I add a grizzly to that? He goes, I've only got one tag left forever. And I go, yeah, but
And I want it.
But and he said it's right near the end of the season. You probably won't see a grizzly. It's unlikely. So I'm going up the Spatsizi up in BC there. I'm flying in and land on the lake. Oh, we had to ride horses in, land on the lake, and then we ride on horses. Anyway, so he goes, look, it's $1,200 for the tag. Pay for the tag. If you happen to see one, you can shoot it. No problem. So I shot the last grizzly in BC. So it was a week before the ban, and so I go up there and I go with my mate. So I had to pay another $5,000. He goes, if you get one, you have to pay another $5,000. I'm like, what? $17,000 for a goat, a moose, and a bear? I'm in. So I fly over there, go there, shoot the grizzly, shoot the moose. And I'm like, and the goats, it was too snowy. It was right up in the mountains. The guy said, we're not going to get a goat. So I don't care, man. I didn't really want a goat anyway. Whatever. I'm in. I don't care. So when I get home, the main guy rings me. Right, I pay me money, pay the extra $10,000. The guy rings me and goes, Steve, seeing you didn't get the goat, I'm going to send you $5,000 back. I'm like, man, what a legend. What? Really? This is
Welcome to Canada.
Yeah, so I was just so happy. So then, yeah. But it was such a good hunt. It was like a 20-year-old bear. And he was
nice.
It was really good. And I put both those videos on YouTube of me shooting the bear. It's like, I think it says British Columbia Adventure or something, bear hunting. I mean, you get so many haters. I love the haters. So anyone who hates it, just go. I love them comments.
Post and ghost. Never go back and just don't read the comments. Yeah.
Yeah. Because my wife used to pull me up. I remember when I was shooting pigs with the SKS, and I used to shoot so many of them in the head, right? And my mate says to me, why don't we call one of your videos Chase and Shoot in the Face? I said, yeah, man, it's not going to work.
No. That might bring the haters right to your doorstep.
Yeah.
Because I had so many where the pig would turn around and look at you and you're just getting between the eyes like, boom. I'm like, yeah, man, it's a good concept, but nah, they'd crucify me for that.
Best fun you could have with an SKS, no doubt
Oh,
about
mate,
it.
so good.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right, well, we're going to wrap this up, Steve. I can't thank
Thanks,
you
guys.
enough.
No worries at all. Anytime.
And,
Hopefully I'll come over there and do another interview with you one day. Live, I'll come there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. If things get back to normal.
Yeah.
Definitely got to have you back for sure, and I got to get over there.
Yeah, man. You've always got a bed here. I'm not sure about you other two guys, but Trev, you're in.
Yeah. Oh, wait till you see the other two. These ones aren't bad. The other ones, this Mo guy.
Oh, there's more, is it?
Well, there's a guy from Quebec. Like we let a foreigner onto the show, so I guess
Why don't you guys just come over and do? Why don't a whole lot of you come, right, and come over and do a radio show from here? Like do one every day on what you're seeing here in Australia. You have once of you been locked up because you're doing the wrong thing. It'd be fantastic.
We'll do that next summer. All right. Take care, Steve.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Steve.